Before Dr. Dre revolutionized G-Funk and the Bomb Squad created Public Enemy's Sonic Chaos, the 1980s hip-hop production scene was packed with innovative beatmakers who invented techniques that became the foundation of modern music. They turned dusty records into worldwide hits, moved millions of units, and created the sonic blueprint every producer still follows today, yet most people don't know exactly how they did it. Let's break down these legendary techniques, starting with number 25. Number 25, the James Brown drum break revolution. Marley Marl and other early producers discovered that isolating and looping James Brown's drummer Clyde Stubblefield created the perfect backbone for hip-hop tracks. In 1986, Marley Marl accidentally sampled a drum hit into his sampler while working on MC Shan's The Bridge and realized he could trigger individual drum sounds. This changed everything. Suddenly, producers weren't just looping entire breakbeats, they were reconstructing them, hit by hit, creating entirely new rhythmic patterns from classic breaks. Number 24, the Oberheim DMX Punch. Run DMC's production team, led by Larry Smith and Russell Simmons, used the Oberheim DMX drum machine to create that distinctive hard-hitting sound that defined early 1980s hip-hop. The DMX had a grittier, more aggressive tone than the popular 808. When combined with minimal instrumentation on tracks like Sucker MCs in 1983, it created a sparse, powerful aesthetic that made the rhymes hit even harder. This stripped-down approach influenced countless producers to focus on rhythm and vocals rather than melodic complexity. Number 23, the 12-bit sampler crunch. The EMU SP1200 and SP12 gave 1980s hip-hop its characteristic gritty texture. These samplers used 12-bit technology, which compressed the sound in a way that added warmth and character. Producers like DJ Premier and Large Professor embraced this limitation, discovering that the slight distortion and compression actually made samples blend better together. What seemed like a technical constraint became an aesthetic choice that defined the golden age sound. Modern producers still try to recreate this 12-bit crunch using expensive plugins. Number 22, the orchestral stab. This technique involves sampling dramatic horn or string hits from funk, soul, and disco records and using them as punctuation in hip-hop tracks. Producer Stiensky pioneered creative uses of orchestral stabs in his legendary Lessons series starting in 1983. Mantronix took it further with tracks like Needle to the Groove in 1985, using rapid-fire stabs to create mechanical, futuristic soundscapes. The orchestral stab became so prevalent that it defined the sound of late 80s hip-hop, appearing on everything from Eric B. and Rakim's records to Biz Markie's playful productions. Number 21, the vocal sample chop. Instead of using long vocal samples, producers started chopping single words or syllables to create new melodies and rhythms. Prince Paul demonstrated this brilliantly on De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising in 1989, cutting up vocal samples into percussive elements. This technique required incredible precision with limited technology. Producers were working with samplers that had tiny screens and minimal editing capabilities. The result was a playful, collage-like approach to production that expanded hip-hop's creative possibilities exponentially. Number 20, the jazz loop flip. DJ Mark the 45 King and other producers discovered that jazz records contained perfect loops for hip-hop. But they didn't just sample obvious parts, they found obscure moments buried deep in jazz compositions. Mark's production on the 900 number in 1987 showcased this perfectly, taking a brief moment from Marva Whitney's funk jazz track and turning it into a hypnotic loop. This technique required deep record knowledge and countless hours of digging through vinyl, separating dedicated producers from casual beatmakers. Number 19, the delay and echo effect. While dub reggae had used delay extensively, hip-hop producers adapted it differently. Eric B. used delay on Rakim's vocals on Paid in Full to create that spacious, hypnotic effect that made the track feel larger than life. By 1987, delay wasn't just an effect, it was a compositional tool. Producers would delay vocal snippets, drum hits, and melodic elements to create depth and movement in tracks that often had minimal instrumentation. This technique made sparse productions sound full and complete. Number 18, the breakbeat layering method. Instead of using one breakbeat, producers like the Bomb Squad started layering multiple drum breaks to create dense, powerful rhythms. On Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions in 1988, they would stack 3, 4, sometimes 5 different breakbeats simultaneously, each one slightly out of sync, creating a chaotic but controlled wall of percussion. This technique required incredible mixing skills and a deep understanding of rhythm. The result was production so dense and powerful, it felt like a sonic assault. Number 17, the pitch shift manipulation. Early samplers had limited memory, so producers discovered that pitching samples up or down could stretch recording time while creating entirely new sounds. DJ Jazzy Jeff and Pete Rock became masters of pitch manipulation, taking soul and funk samples and shifting them to fit their tracks perfectly. Sometimes they'd pitch a sample up to make it brighter and more energetic, other times down to make it darker and more menacing. This wasn't just practical, it became an artistic choice that gave producers more sonic flexibility. Number 16, the scratch as melody. While scratching was already established, producers like DJ Cash Money and Jazzy Jeff elevated it by using scratches melodically rather than just rhythmically. In 1988, DJ Jazzy Jeff's work on He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper demonstrated how scratching could function as the main melodic element in a track. They weren't just cutting records for percussive effect, they were playing turntables like musical instruments, creating melodies and harmonies through manipulation of the record. This transformed the DJ from a supporting role to a legitimate musician. Number 15, the filtered bass drop. Producers discovered they could use filters to remove high frequencies from bass samples, then bring them back for dramatic effect. This technique appeared on countless late 80s tracks, creating that signature moment when the bass would drop and hit your chest. Marley Marl perfected this on tracks for Biz Markie and Big Daddy Kane between 1987 and '89. The filtered bass drop became essential for creating dynamic movement in tracks, building tension and releasing it at strategic moments to energize the crowd. Number 14, the record scratch percussion. Before scratching became elaborate, pioneering DJs like Grandmaster Flash and Afrika Bambaataa used simple scratches as additional percussion. By the mid-80s, this evolved into complex rhythmic patterns. Producers would record scratch patterns and treat them like drum sounds, layering them with traditional breakbeats. The scratching added texture and energy that drum machines alone couldn't provide. This technique bridged the gap between DJ culture and studio production, ensuring that the DJ's role remained central even as production became more sophisticated. Number 13, the reverse sample technique. Producers discovered that playing samples backwards created eerie, otherworldly effects perfect for hip-hop's growing experimentation. By running tape backwards or using sampler functions, they could create reverse cymbal swells, backwards melodies, and ghostly atmospheres. This technique appeared subtly on many late 80s productions, adding mysterious elements that listeners could feel but not quite identify. It demonstrated that hip-hop producers weren't just making beats, they were becoming sound designers, exploring every possible manipulation of recorded sound. Number 12, the a cappella reproduction. Instead of sampling entire tracks with music, producers would find rare a cappella versions of soul and R&B records, then build entirely new beats underneath them. This gave complete control over the musical arrangement while maintaining the power of classic vocals. Herbie Love Bugazor used this technique brilliantly on Salt-N-Pepa records, and it became standard practice for creating fresh versions of familiar melodies. The technique required extensive record knowledge to find those rare a cappella pressings, making it another skill that separated elite producers from amateurs. Before we continue breaking down these legendary techniques, make sure you're subscribed to Hip Hop Legends Archives. We're documenting the real history of hip-hop culture, the innovations that shaped music forever, and the pioneers who deserve recognition. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the foundation of the culture. Now, let's get back to the techniques that changed everything. Number 11, the vocal sample hook. Instead of singing or rapping choruses, producers created hooks entirely from sampled vocals. Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock's It Takes Two in 1988 became the ultimate example, with that infectious yeah woo vocal sample creating one of hip-hop's most recognizable hooks. This technique allowed producers to craft catchy, memorable choruses without needing singers, keeping hip-hop's DIY ethos intact. The key was finding the perfect vocal snippet, brief enough to loop seamlessly, but distinctive enough to carry the entire song. Number 10, the Roland TR-808 bass boom. While the 808 drum machine was released in 1980, producers didn't fully unlock its potential until mid-decade. Afrika Bambaataa's Planet Rock in 1982 introduced it, but by 1985, producers understood how to manipulate the 808's bass drum decay and tone controls to create earth-shaking sub-bass. That 808 kick drum became the foundation of tracks that made car speakers rattle and club walls shake. Producers would tune it, layer it with other bass sounds, and use it to create low-end power that previous hip-hop productions lacked. Number 9, the compressed drum slam. Using hardware compressors, producers discovered they could make drums hit harder by reducing dynamic range. This made quiet drum hits louder and controlled the peaks of loud hits, resulting in consistently powerful percussion. Rick Rubin pioneered this approach on Def Jam Productions, giving Run DMC and the Beastie Boys that aggressive, in-your-face drum sound. By 1987, every serious hip-hop producer was compressing drums heavily. creating that punchy characteristic that made hip-hop drums more powerful than the original breakbeats they sampled. It was controlled sonic aggression. Number 8. The kalimba loop discovery. Certain records contained brief kalimba or thumb piano melodies that became gold for hip-hop producers. These simple, percussive melodic loops had the perfect rhythmic quality for hip-hop. When looped, they created hypnotic, minimal backing tracks that gave MCs room to work while maintaining musical interest. The kalimba's distinctive tone cut through mixes without overwhelming vocals. Producers spent hours searching for these specific sounds, understanding that sometimes the most effective sample was the simplest one. This technique emphasized the importance of sample selection over complex layering. Number 7. The stutter edit effect. By manually triggering the same sample repeatedly in rapid succession, producers created stutter effects that added excitement and tension. This required incredible timing and precision with early samplers that had no automatic stutter functions. Producers would literally press buttons repeatedly in rhythm to achieve the effect. By 1988 and 89, the stutter edit became a signature flourish, used to build intensity before verses or to punctuate important lyrical moments. It demonstrated the performative aspect of production. These weren't just studio technicians, they were performers manipulating technology in real time. Number 6. The breakbeat speed manipulation. By changing turntable speeds from 33 to 45 RPM or using sampler pitch controls, producers could drastically alter breakbeats. Speeding up breaks made them more energetic and frenetic, while slowing them down created heavy, menacing grooves. The same breakbeat could sound completely different at different speeds. This technique gave producers more creative options from limited sample libraries. It also meant that classic breaks like the Amen break or Apache could be reinvented countless times, each speed variation creating a completely different feel and energy level. Number 5. The horn stab punctuation. Funk and soul records were full of sharp horn stabs that producers used as exclamation points in hip-hop tracks. These one- or two-note brass hits added energy and dynamics, breaking up the monotony of looped samples. Producers would carefully select horn stabs that matched their track's key, then trigger them at strategic moments, emphasizing lyrics, marking transitions, or adding call and response elements. The horn stab became so essential that its absence was noticeable. It connected hip-hop to its funk and soul roots while creating forward-looking productions. Number 4. The double-time hi-hat pattern. While the main beat played at one tempo, producers programmed hi-hats at double speed, creating forward momentum and energy. This technique made tracks feel faster and more urgent without actually increasing the tempo. It gave dancers more rhythmic information to work with and made beats more complex and interesting. By the late 80s, the double-time hi-hat became standard in hip-hop production, appearing on everything from party tracks to hardcore street anthems. It proved that subtle rhythmic adjustments could dramatically impact a track's energy and feel. Number 3. The filtered vocal sample. Instead of using vocal samples at full frequency, producers would filter them, removing certain frequencies to make them sit better in the mix or create special effects. Filtering vocals could make them sound distant and ghostly, or remove muddy low frequencies so they didn't compete with bass lines. This technique required understanding EQ and frequencies, knowledge that separated professional producers from bedroom beatmakers. By 1988, filtered vocals became an artistic choice, creating atmosphere and texture that gave productions depth and sophistication beyond simple sample playback. Number 2, the snare layering technique. Producers discovered that layering multiple snare sounds created a bigger, more powerful impact than any single snare could achieve. They'd combine an 808 snare with a sampled acoustic snare and maybe a hand clap, each one occupying different frequency ranges. The combination produced a full present snare sound that cut through mixes and hit hard on any sound system. This technique required careful tuning and EQ, so the layered sounds enhanced rather than canceled each other. The layered snare became the backbone of powerful hip-hop productions throughout the late 80s. Number 1, the loop-based composition philosophy. The most fundamental technique wasn't technical but philosophical, embracing the loop as the foundation of hip-hop production. Instead of traditional song structures with verses, bridges, and choruses changing musically, hip-hop producers created hypnotic loops that repeated throughout entire tracks, with variation coming primarily from the MC's delivery. This approach came from DJ culture, where extending the break meant repeating it endlessly. Producers like Marley Marl, Rick Rubin, and the Bomb Squad perfected this, understanding that the right loop, properly selected and executed, could sustain interest for 4 minutes without significant changes. This loop-based aesthetic separated hip-hop from all other popular music and became its defining characteristic. These 25 techniques built the foundation that every modern producer stands on, from bedroom beatmakers to multi-platinum hitmakers. The 1980s pioneers worked with limited technology but unlimited creativity, turning constraints into innovations that defined a culture. If you appreciated this deep dive into production history, show some love with a like, drop a comment sharing which technique impacted you most, and subscribe to Hip Hop Legends Archives for more documentaries that honor the real foundations of hip hop culture. We keep the history alive so the culture continues to grow. Peace.